Ugh, you want me to be introspective? I groaned, but they kept looking at me, expecting an answer. I looked away, to the drawings the priest had made. Why did he have the cutie mark he did, and not a pencil or sketch or something? Was it because his talent was believing in Celestia? In acting as kind and understanding as he had been? I don't know. It was like suddenly all I could think about was that I screwed up. That I'd blown everything. And I felt like I was absolutely the worst pony for trying to help any pony. I shook my head. It was Scootle and 99 all over again. It's just a setback, Rampage said with a smirk and a shrug. The important thing is that we keep going, right? Right, I said, and then looked at P21 and smiled. By the way, when are you going to talk to Scotch Tape about everything? He sighed, his smile sliding away. Eventually. Not right now, not with everything, but soon. She's kind of already got it figured out. She's a smart kid like that, I said with a smile. Gets it from her parents. He looked at me with his grumpy face. Parent. I hate that word. Why? Rampage asked in amusement. He looked at his hooves. Because back in '99 we weren't allowed parents. I was told I impregnated 29 mares in 10 years, but I was never told which ones. Sometimes I'd be walking to an assignment and pass by a filly and see a new colt brought in and wonder, is that mine? Did I help make that? We were never daddies or fathers or anything like that. We never got to be part of our children's lives. We were studs, Rampage suggested with a grin. I hate you, you know that? He murmured. No, you don't, she replied. You don't like that I don't take what happened to you as seriously as you do. I covered my snicker with a hoof, and she thumped her head with her own. And you don't think you're off the hook either, I swear, the three of you. We're from Stable 99, he said with a little shrug. I sighed and looked at him. You know what I think? I think you're just like me. He leaned away from me, looking vaguely insulted and suspicious. I think that you've got something no stallion in 99 had. A chance at knowing your own children. And you are terrified of fucking it up. And as one expert on fuck-ups to another, you are fucking it up. She's a smart girl. She knows you're her father, and she wants you in her life. But in a few more months, maybe even a few more weeks of you ignoring it, and she won't want you anymore. He looked at his hooves, ears drooping. Rampage sighed sympathetically and patted his shoulder. Not easy either way. I stood and shook myself. Anyway, I have a mare I need to apologize to. Think it over, P21, and if you want my advice, and I can understand if you don't, but don't wait. I left them to talk and trot back upstairs. No pony was getting any sleep tonight. I knocked on Glory's door. She opened it almost at once, her eyes wide and fearful. She mirrored my apologetic smile. I hope my playing didn't wake you up. No, not at all, she murmured softly. Can I come in? I asked, hoping my sheepish smile overcame the immense awkwardness I was feeling. She stepped back from the door, and I stepped in. I was guessing that this had been Tarot's bedroom once upon a time. There were still quite a few boxes of old toys and the like. Are you feeling better? She asked as she led me over and we sat on the bed. She looked at me curiously, cocking her head. You look a little better. Yes. I looked at her for a moment. Kinda. Another moment, and I sighed and looked away. Not really. But I'm moving again. As long as I'm moving, there's hope. So, kinda better? You sure? She stroked my cheek in concern. Really? Really sure? I nodded. Yep. Good. Then I don't feel quite so bad for this, she said as she looked me in the eye with a loving smile, pulled back a little, and hit me so hard upside my head that I flopped clear to the other side of the bed. What in Equestria were you thinking? Giving highly addictive, mind-altering chemicals to a filly like that? You know, there was a time when I thought that Med-X was bad, and I squirmed at administering a dose of Hydra. Now it's chems. And I actually sat by and let you. What in Equestria was I thinking? I'd be stripped of any medical license for the rest of my life if any pony in Thunderhead found out. I blinked up at her, and couldn't help but laughing as she looked down at me. And now I'm hitting you, and you're laughing. She looked down at me sternly. No more chems unless a pony has at least had his or her cutie mark. I mean it. I reached up and pulled her off the bed and onto me for some snugglage. I knew that what she wanted was the right thing to do, but a nasty little part of me muttered to the part of my mind, insisting that giving Scotch the PTM was also the right thing to do. No matter how much I tried, I couldn't quite shut it up. Contrary to what some might expect, we didn't engage in lecherous activities. Neither of our hearts was in it. Instead, we lay together, cuddling till she nodded off. Since my body really didn't have to sleep, I got the primer and went through the magical exercises. They talked about imagining your magic as a breath pushing against a leaf. I was at least not a complete failure at that one. Then, as your magic, like a mouth closing on something to move it. I had to admit, even this old book, with its cute little pictures and bold print, was better than weeks of listening to textbooks drone on about simply doing it right. I'd never thought of magic as something I could do. It was always something somebody else could do better. By the time morning arrived, I was able to turn the pages of the book consistently. Half the time. Hey, it was still progress. Glory was quite happy to discover that Precious was every bit as appreciative of her cooking as I was. Only Glory would be considerate and determined enough to smash up an emerald and mix it into an omelet. I wondered where she'd gotten the eggs for it, then decided against asking her. Rampage chipped a tooth and promptly went back to her raw bloat sprite. An acquired taste, to be sure. P21 and Scotch Tape were playing the look away game. One would look, see the other, both would look away. It was all I could do to not scream. But considering how I'd been last night, I suppose that I was the last person to have any right to criticize any pony needing time and space to themselves. Still, both of them got put on washing the dishes. Quite a chore after Glory's cooking. Maybe that helped P21 overcome his irritants. Talking with Precious, it was clear that she didn't know where she should go, only that returning to Sanguine with us was last on her list of interests. You know, Precious, I can't say for sure, but I know that the Crusaders would certainly use your whoosh around here. The purple dragon filly blinked at me in confusion, and I looked over at Scotch. And I think you should stay too, Scotch, just so nothing goes wrong. You want me to leave? She gasped, her bowl of sugar apple bombs forgotten as she stood on her seat. No, I think it'd be better for Precious and for Charity if you stick around and help out. I tried to say as reasonably and casually as possible. I looked over at Glory and P21 for help. Of course, Rampage didn't help any as she gave a bloat sprite flavored belch and said, let her come if she wants. She's a tough kid. Glory smiled at Scotch. Don't you want to see if you can make that toilet idea of yours work? I blinked at the two of them in surprise. It'd be a big improvement for the town over using the ditch on the side of the road. She actually shuddered. Huh? What was wrong with the ditch? I mean, I loved plumbing as much as the next mayor, but... Wait. Suddenly, that thought led me to question how Thunderhead handled its sewage. Now I was shuddering. I'd never look at the rain the same way again. Sure, after I get my cutie mark, Scotch said very matter-of-factly. Face it, no pony wants a toilet cutie mark. I mean, the only thing worse would be a pile of poop cutie mark. That's about it. I think any cutie mark is fine as long as it's yours, Glory said quietly as she glanced back at her flank, and the scarred patch where once she sported a sunrise. Then she sighed and pushed on. In any case, Precious has told us about the numerous threats around and under hippocampic research. Scotch had confirmed that my pip-bug tag was still north of us. Monsters, poison, long as none of them are machinery, I'm fine, Scotch said dismissively as she pinched the bowl in her hooves and lifted it to her lips to slurp down the sugary sludge left at the bottom. When she finished, she smirked at me with a milky mustache. The source of the milk was another thing I decided I didn't want to know. In fact, Precious actually gave me an idea of how to take care of it. Both the rainbow stuff and the pink stuff we can get washed out by the rain. That's a trick underground, Rampage murmured. Not a lot of rain clouds down there. No, but if it's anything like a stable, it'll have a fire prevention system. If you set one of those off, then it'll wash the rainbow junk down the drain and clear the pink gunk out of the air, Scotch said with a smug grin. You know how to do that? Provided they work and you can get the control system, I'd test purge the whole system, Glory replied coolly. Oh yeah? And if the controls don't work, what then? Scotch asked with a challenging frown. Use incendiary rounds to set them off one by one, or zone by zone. And if they've been manually shut off. Look for big red valves, naturally. Standard colorization for fire systems. And if they've corroded shut? Oil, a wrench, and some good hard knocks, Glory countered without missing a beat. Can you tell me how to set up an IV drip into a subclavian vein? The filly blinked. That's not plumbing. Pipes are pipes, in a stable or in the body. Scotch was silent for a moment, pursing her lips, and then said gradually, Yeah, well, you're still boring. Just because Scotch folded her forelegs on the table. Nope, boring. Putting me to sleep. She started to snore loudly. Look, Scotch, I'm not saying boring. Blackjack, she's from your stable. Tell her I'm not boring. Glory whined as she batted her eyes at me. I put my hooves around the gray Pegasus's waist and tugged her close. Honestly, considering what's happened to me so far, I'm glad you're the calm and rational things on the sides. She pressed her lips together, and she made a delighted little murr in the back of her throat. Ew! Precious wrinkled her nose in disgust, then looked at Scotch, who blinked at her in confusion. Aren't you grossed out? Huh? What's gross about that? I always saw mares kissing mares back in the stable. She crossed her hooves. Now, kissing stallions? That's gross.